Chapter 5, A Heart Divided. Chapter 5, A Heart Divided. Elena replayed the moment in her head over and over again. The kiss, the way Liam had looked at her, so sure, so certain. And then Ethan, the way his expression had shifted, his voice turning cold before he walked away. She had spent years hoping Ethan would see her as something more. But now, when he finally seemed to notice, she was tangled up with the wrong twin. Elena hadn't spoken to Ethan since that night, not for lack of trying. She had texted him, "Hey, can we talk?" But all she got was a curt busy. In class, he barely looked at her, and when she saw him outside the library, talking with their mutual friends, she forced herself to approach. "Hey, Ethan." For a split second, something flickered in his expression, something like hesitation. But then, his walls went up. "Elena," he greeted neutrally, just her name. No warmth, no smile, not even his usual easygoing tone. Her chest tightened. She hesitated. How was she supposed to bring up that night, that moment, that kiss? But before she could say another word, Ethan turned to one of his friends. "Hey, do you still need help with that research project?" And just like that, he dismissed her. Elena stood there, feeling like a stranger to him for the first time ever. Later that evening, Elena sat alone in the campus cafe, stirring her untouched drink. She was so deep in thought that she didn't notice someone sitting down across from her until a familiar voice broke through. "You look miserable." Her heart skipped. She looked up to see Liam, his arms folded, watching her with that same unreadable intensity he always had. "I'm fine," she muttered. Liam raised an eyebrow. "Yeah? Tell that to your coffee. You've been stirring it for 5 minutes." Elena scowled but said nothing. Liam leaned in slightly. "Let me guess. My dear brother's giving you the cold shoulder?" Her fingers tensed around her cup. "I don't know what you're talking about." Liam exhaled, shaking his head. "Elena, you're a terrible liar." She looked away. "I warned you, didn't I?" Liam continued, his voice quieter now. "I told you to ask why he never pursued you." Elena's jaw tightened. "What are you trying to say?" Liam hesitated for the briefest second. Then he leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "Ethan has always known how you felt about him." Elena froze. Her breath caught in her throat, her fingers going numb. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible. He never said anything, never gave you a reason to hope?" Liam's eyes darkened. "Exactly." Elena felt lightheaded. Had she been fooling herself this entire time? Had Ethan always known and just ignored her? Liam reached for her hand. She should have pulled away, but she didn't. "Elena, Elena," he said, his voice softer now. "You don't have to wait for him anymore." Her heart pounded. Why was he making this so difficult? That night, Elena lay in bed, staring at her ceiling. Her mind was a storm. Was Liam telling the truth? Had Ethan really known about her feelings all this time and simply ignored them? Why hadn't he ever said anything? Why now, only after Liam had stepped forward, did he finally seem to care? And worst of all, why was a part of her considering Liam's words? She was supposed to love Ethan. She had spent years loving him. But when Liam touched her hand earlier, when he looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered, why had it felt so different? So real? She squeezed her eyes shut, hating herself for the doubt creeping in. Her heart had always belonged to Ethan, hadn't it? Chapter 6, The Truth Comes Crashing Down. Elena thought she had prepared herself for anything, for the confusion, for the way her heart wavered every time Liam looked at her like she was the only girl in the world, for the way Ethan's silence cut deeper than his words ever could. But nothing could have prepared her for the truth. Because when it finally came, it wasn't just a simple answer. It destroyed everything she thought she knew. Ethan had been avoiding her for days. Every time she tried to talk to him, he shut her out. He was polite, distant, treating her like a stranger. And Elena had reached her breaking point. So when she spotted him on the outdoor basketball court that evening, alone, bouncing a ball absent-mindedly, she didn't hesitate. She marched up to him, heart hammering, hands clenched into fists. "Why are you avoiding me?" Ethan froze mid-dribble. The ball bounced away, rolling to the side. "Elena, no more ignoring me." Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to hold his gaze. "If you're mad about what happened with Liam, then just say it." Ethan's jaw tightened. He looked away. "You kissed him." His voice was quiet. Too quiet. Elena swallowed hard. It wasn't planned. I didn't mean for it to happen like that. Ethan let out a humorless laugh. Right, so it just happened. Yes, she whispered. He was silent for a long moment. Then, finally, did you like it? Elena's breath caught because she didn't know the answer. Or maybe she did, and she was terrified of it. She shook her head. That's not the point. Then what is? Ethan turned to her, frustration flickering in his usually composed expression. Because from where I'm standing, you've moved on pretty fast. His words stung. Her voice broke. I spent years waiting for you, Ethan. Ethan went still. Years. Elena's hands trembled. I waited for you to notice me, to see me the way I saw you, and now, the second someone else does, suddenly you care? Ethan's gaze darkened. You think I didn't notice you? His voice was low, rough. Dangerous. Elena faltered. What? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. You think I never saw the way you looked at me? The way you laughed at my jokes even when they were terrible? The way you always waited for me? Elena felt like the ground had vanished beneath her. Then why? She whispered. Why didn't you ever? Because of Liam. The words hit her like a brick wall. Her breath hitched. What? Ethan's expression was unreadable. Liam liked you first, Elena. The world tilted. No, she said automatically, shaking her head. That's not possible. He never told you, Ethan interrupted, because that's how Liam is. He hides things until it's too late. Elena's heart pounded. I knew, Ethan continued. His voice was quieter now, laced with something almost like regret. I knew how he felt about you, and no matter how much I wanted to, he cut himself off, exhaling shakily. I couldn't do that to him. Elena's mind was spinning. Liam had liked her first? Liam, the same boy who had been flirting with every girl in school, the same one who teased her endlessly, who had smirked at her and called her sweetheart. Had it all been an act? Had she been blind this whole time? Ethan ran a hand down his face. That's why I never said anything. That's why I let you believe I didn't feel the same way. Elena's chest ached, because the most painful part of all, she had spent all these years loving Ethan, when he had been holding himself back from loving her too. And now, it was too late. Elena didn't know how she made it back to her dorm. She felt like she was moving through a haze. Her hands were still shaking when she reached for her phone. There was only one person who could confirm this. She typed out a message. Did you ever like me? She stared at the screen, heart racing. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, the message came. Liam, I told you, sweetheart. You should have asked Ethan that question first. Elena's breath hitched, because in those words she realized Liam had always known too, and still he had let her fall for the wrong twin. Chapter 7, Between the Twins. Elena had spent years believing love was simple. She loved Ethan. That had been the one truth she held on to. But now she didn't know what was real anymore. Because Ethan had loved her all along but never fought for her. Because Liam had lied to her, but he never let her go. And now, standing between the two brothers, she realized something terrifying. No matter who she chose, she would break someone's heart. Elena's heart raced as she stepped onto the rooftop terrace, the same place Liam had confessed to her. This time, she had called him here, and he knew why. Liam leaned against the railing, staring out at the city skyline, but when she approached, he turned, his usual playful smirk missing. You found out, he said simply. Elena swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Liam exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. Because I knew what you'd do. What does that mean? She demanded. It means you would have thrown away everything to wait for him. Liam's eyes darkened. And I wasn't going to let you waste your life on someone who never had the guts to fight for you. Her stomach tightened. You had no right to decide that for me, she whispered. Liam's jaw clenched. Maybe. But tell me, Elena, if Ethan really wanted you, why did it take you kissing me for him to finally react? Elena flinched, because she had asked herself the same question. Liam stepped closer. You've spent your whole life chasing after someone who let you walk away. But when you kissed me, when I told you how I felt, you didn't run. Her breath caught. Liam's voice dropped. Why do you think that is? Before she could answer, the rooftop door slammed open. Elena spun around and her heart stopped. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were burning. Liam sighed. Well, If it isn't my dear brother, right on time. Elena felt the air crackle between them. The tension, the history, the unspoken war that had been simmering for years was about to explode. Ethan stepped forward. You knew how she felt about me. Liam didn't flinch. Yeah, and? Ethan's hands curled into fists. And you still took the letter. You still let her think. I let her think. You didn't care, because you never did anything to prove otherwise. Liam's voice was calm, but sharp. You had years, Ethan. I gave you so many chances to step up, but you didn't. And I wasn't going to sit around and watch you break her heart like you break everything else. Elena felt like she was drowning. Enough, she burst out. This isn't about you two. This is about me. Both brothers turned to look at her. She took a shaky breath, forcing herself to meet their gazes. I can't keep being pulled between you, she whispered. I need to make a choice. Ethan's expression softened. Elena, Liam exhaled. Then do it. The weight of their words settled over her like a storm. This was it. She had to decide. Elena closed her eyes, listening to her heart. One of them had been her dream for years, the boy she had always loved. The other had been her unexpected reality, the one who had actually fought for her. When she opened her eyes, she knew. She finally knew. She took a deep breath and spoke the name of the boy she had chosen. Chapter 8, Love Finds Its Way. The air on the rooftop felt heavy with anticipation. Ethan stood on one side, his blue eyes filled with emotions he had hidden for too long. Liam stood on the other, his usual confidence masking something deeper, something vulnerable. And in the middle stood Elena. One choice. One moment that would change everything. She took a deep breath, her heart hammering. Then, finally, she spoke his name, Liam. Ethan's breath hitched, his entire body went rigid. Liam, on the other hand, froze, completely, like he hadn't actually expected her to say his name. Elena's hands trembled, but her voice stayed steady. I spent years waiting for Ethan, years loving him, even when he never said a word. She swallowed hard, turning to meet Ethan's gaze. And when I finally learned the truth, it was too late, because somewhere along the way, while I was chasing after the past. She looked at Liam now, her heart pounding. I fell for you. For the first time since she had met him, Liam looked speechless. Ethan let out a slow, shaky breath. He nodded once, then looked away. You deserve someone who never made you wait, he said quietly. The pain in his voice cut through her, but she knew this was the right decision. Liam took a step toward her, then another. Then, finally, he reached for her hand. I won't make you regret it, he murmured. She smiled. I know. And then he kissed her. Unlike their first unexpected kiss, this one was different. It wasn't impulsive or desperate or filled with uncertainty. It was right. It was real. And Elena knew this was the love she'd been waiting for all along. After the rooftop, Ethan didn't disappear. He still met Elena's gaze when they passed each other. He still sent her a small, unreadable smile when Liam teased her about something. But something had shifted. One evening, she found him by the library steps, staring out at the campus. She sat beside him. Are we okay? She asked softly. Ethan didn't answer right away. Then finally, we will be. Her throat tightened. She knew Ethan needed time, that things between them wouldn't heal overnight. But as he gave her a small, sincere smile, she realized they would be okay. Love finds its way. A few months later, Elena stood in Liam's arms, watching the sun set over the city. So, he murmured against her hair, you're really stuck with me now, huh? She laughed. Guess so. He pulled back just enough to look at her. Regrets? She smiled. Not one, Liam grinned. Good, because I plan on making you very, very happy. And as he kissed her once more, Elena finally understood. Love didn't always happen the way you expected. Sometimes it took a wrong letter, a painful truth, and a broken heart to lead you to the right person. But in the end, love always found its way. And there you have it, Elena's journey of love, choices, and heartbreak. A story of finding the one who was always meant to be hers, even if the road was a little more complicated than she ever imagined. But remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the happiest endings. If you enjoyed this journey and want to see more stories filled with love, twists, and dramatic choices, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for updates. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.